Andrew Collins stepped off the plane. He was exhausted. The long flight had taken its toll, but his spirit soared. He was finally going home. He pictured his family. He hadn't seen them in 6 long months. He had missed them terribly. As he walked through the bustling airport, Andrew spotted a familiar face. It was Ronnie, his trusted driver. Ronnie held a sign. "Welcome back, Mr. Collins," it read. Relief washed over Andrew. He was home. "Ronnie, it's good to see you," Andrew said, shaking his hand. Andrew thought about his wife, Amelia. She was everything to him. They had been trying to start a family for years. After countless doctor visits and failed attempts, they had almost given up hope. Then, a miracle happened. Amelia was pregnant. Andrew had to leave for a business trip shortly after Amelia announced her pregnancy. He had been gone for 6 long months. He had missed so much. He had missed seeing Amelia's belly grow. He had missed feeling the baby kick. He had missed being there for Amelia. Now, he was finally going to meet his daughter. He couldn't wait to hold her in his arms. He couldn't wait to tell her he loved her. He couldn't wait to be a father. The car pulled up to the hospital. Andrew's heart pounded in his chest. He was nervous. He was excited. He was overwhelmed with emotion. He took a deep breath. He opened the car door and stepped out. The hospital was bustling with activity. Doctors and nurses rushed down the hallways. Visitors chatted quietly amongst themselves. The air was thick with anticipation and fear and hope. Andrew made his way to the maternity ward. He had to see his daughter. He had to see Amelia. He had to tell them both how much he loved them. He paused outside the nursery window. There she was, his daughter. She was tiny and perfect. He couldn't believe she was finally here. Andrew's heart pounded as he pushed open the door to Amelia's room. He saw her first. She was sitting up in bed, cradling a tiny bundle in her arms. Her face was glowing. She looked radiant. "Amelia," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Amelia looked up and smiled. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Andrew," she said, "you're here." Andrew crossed the room in 3 long strides. He pulled Amelia and the baby close. He held them tight. He closed his eyes, committing the moment to memory. He was finally a father. "I'm so sorry I missed the birth," he murmured into Amelia's hair, "but I'm here now. I'm here to stay." Andrew pulled away from Amelia and looked down at the baby in her arms. She was beautiful. She had a tiny button nose and a head full of dark hair. Her eyes were closed and she was sleeping peacefully. He gently touched her cheek. Her skin was soft as rose petals. "She's perfect," Andrew whispered. "What's her name?" "Louisa," Amelia replied softly. "Louisa Collins." Andrew smiled. It was the perfect name for their little girl. He couldn't imagine loving anything more. He held Louisa close, marveling at how such a tiny human could have captured his heart so completely. "Hello, Louisa," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm your daddy, and I love you very much." A strange feeling washed over Andrew. It was a feeling of unease. He couldn't place it. Something felt off. He glanced around the room. It was luxurious, almost too luxurious for a hospital room. And where was the hustle and bustle of the hospital? The room was strangely quiet. He could hear the faint hum of medical equipment, but that was all. Where were the nurses, the doctors, the other new parents? He looked at Amelia. She seemed different somehow. Her eyes were red-rimmed. Her smile seemed forced. Was she hiding something? And what about his mother, Lucia? She was usually so talkative, but today she was unusually quiet. Andrew pushed the unsettling thoughts aside. He had to be imagining things. He was just tired from his long journey. That was all. He focused on the task at hand. It was time to take his girls home. Andrew helped Amelia to her feet. She winced slightly. She was still sore from the delivery, but her eyes shone with a mix of exhaustion and joy. Lucia bustled around the room, gathering their belongings. She seemed anxious to leave. "Are you sure you're ready to go, Amelia?" Andrew asked, concern etched across his face. "We can stay another night if you need to." Amelia shook her head. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "I just want to go home. I want to be in my own bed, with my husband and my baby." The car ride home was quiet. Amelia dozed lightly in the back seat. Louisa nestled in her arms. Andrew sat in the front, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. He picked up a discarded newspaper from the seat next to him. It was from the day before. He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning the headlines. And then he saw it. A small article, buried on page 3. The article was about a baby girl who had been kidnapped from a local hospital. Andrew's blood ran cold. He reread the article, his heart pounding in his chest. The baby in the article had been born on the same day as Louisa. She had the same birthday, the same hospital. Andrew's mind raced. Could it be? No, it was impossible. He glanced back at Louisa. She was sound asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling rhythmically. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. Andrew took a deep breath. He was being ridiculous. This was his daughter, his Louisa. But the doubt lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He needed to know the truth. He turned to Ronnie. "Ronnie," he said, his voice shaking. "I need you to turn this car around. We need to go back to the hospital." Ronnie glanced at him in the rearview mirror, his brow furrowed. "Sir?" "Just turn the car around," Andrew said, his voice tight. "Now." Ronnie hesitated for a moment, then nodded slowly. He pulled a U-turn, the tires screeching against the pavement. Andrew closed his eyes, his mind spinning. He had to know the truth, even if it destroyed him. The car screeched to a halt in front of the hospital. Andrew jumped out, not bothering to wait for Ronnie to open the door. He raced through the hospital doors, his heart pounding in his chest. He burst into Amelia's room. Amelia and Lucia were packing their bags, their faces etched with concern. "Andrew," Amelia asked, her voice laced with alarm. "What is it? What's wrong?" Andrew stood there for a moment, his chest heaving. He looked at Amelia, his eyes searching hers. He had to ask. He had to know. "Amelia," he said, his voice trembling. "Where did we get Louisa?" A heavy silence descended upon the room. Amelia's face paled. Lucia's eyes darted nervously between Andrew and her daughter-in-law. The air crackled with unspoken tension. "Andrew," Lucia finally spoke, her voice strained. "What a strange question. Where else would we get her? She's your daughter." Andrew's gaze remained fixed on Amelia. He needed to hear it from her. He needed to see the truth in her eyes. But Amelia wouldn't meet his gaze. She avoided his eyes, her fingers fidgeting nervously with the strap of her handbag. "Amelia," Andrew repeated, his voice barely a whisper now. "Please, tell me what's going on." "Andrew, darling," Amelia said, her voice trembling slightly. "You're just tired. The long flight, the excitement of meeting Louisa. It's all gotten to you." She stepped towards him, reaching out to touch his arm, but Andrew flinched away from her touch. Her touch felt cold, distant. "Don't lie to me, Amelia," Andrew pleaded, his voice breaking. "Please, just tell me the truth." Amelia's shoulders slumped, defeat washing over her. She turned away from Andrew, her gaze falling on the floor. "It's not that simple," she whispered. What's not simple? Andrew pressed, his voice rising in desperation. What aren't you telling me? Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes. The baby! Our baby! She choked back a sob, unable to finish the sentence. Lucia stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Amelia's shoulder. Andrew, my dear, she began, her voice soft but firm. There were complications. The baby. She didn't make it. The words hit Andrew like a physical blow. His knees buckled. He stumbled backwards, collapsing onto a nearby chair. The room spun around him. He felt like he was drowning in a sea of grief and confusion. No, he whispered, his voice hoarse. No, that's not possible. I saw her. I held her. Louisa. Lucia's hand tightened on Amelia's shoulder. It's true, Andrew, she said, her voice laced with sorrow. Our precious granddaughter. She was stillborn. Andrew's mind reeled. He struggled to reconcile the image of the sleeping baby girl he had held in his arms with the devastating news he had just been given. It couldn't be true. It couldn't be. And yet, deep down, a chilling certainty began to creep into his heart. He looked from Amelia's tear-stained face to Lucia's somber expression. He knew, with a sickening dread, that they were telling the truth. Then who? He stammered, his voice barely audible. Who is the baby in the nursery? Amelia's eyes darted nervously around the room. Her voice was barely a whisper. The baby, she's not ours, Andrew. Andrew felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean, not ours? He asked, his voice a mixture of confusion and dread. Lucia wrung her hands. Her voice shook as she spoke. We couldn't bear the thought of you coming home to an empty crib, Andrew. Andrew's mind raced. He struggled to process what his mother was saying. What are you talking about? He demanded, his voice rising in panic. Where did you get the baby? Amelia buried her face in her hands. We took her, she sobbed. Andrew stared at his wife and mother, his mind reeling. You took her? He repeated, his voice barely a whisper. You kidnapped a baby? The weight of their confession crashed down on him. His world shattered into a million pieces. The baby he had held, the baby he had sung to, the baby he had loved. She wasn't his. She belonged to someone else. The newspaper article flashed in his mind. A baby girl, kidnapped from the hospital, the same day Louisa was born. The same hospital. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. Andrew felt sick to his stomach. He stumbled back, his hand instinctively reaching for the phone in his pocket. He had to call the police. He had to report this. He had to do what was right. Andrew, please, Amelia pleaded, her voice thick with desperation. Don't do this. We'll figure something out. We'll give her back. Just please, don't call the police. Andrew hesitated. He looked at Amelia, his heart breaking for her, for the pain and desperation in her eyes. He looked at his mother, her face pale and drawn. He knew they were both terrified, but he knew what he had to do. Andrew's finger trembled as he pressed the phone to his ear. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice boomed through the phone, a stark contrast to the hushed whispers that had filled the room moments before. He closed his eyes, his voice catching in his throat as he choked out the words. I need to report a kidnapping. A baby. My wife. The words spilled out in a torrent of guilt and anguish as he recounted the events of the past few days. The operator's voice was a steady presence on the other end of the line, guiding him through the details, her tone calm but urgent as she dispatched a police unit to his location. Andrew hung up the phone, his hand shaking as he dropped it onto the table. He looked at his wife and mother, their faces ashen, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and regret. The weight of his actions pressed down on him, heavy and suffocating. He had betrayed their trust, their love. for the sake of a truth he hadn't been prepared to face. The arrival of the police was a blur. Andrew watched numbly as Amelia and Lucia were led away, their faces etched with a mixture of shame and despair. He could only imagine the legal storm that awaited them, the consequences of their desperate actions. But through it all, a part of him couldn't help but feel a profound sense of relief. The truth, however painful, was finally out. The baby girl, Louisa, was gently removed from the nursery, her cries echoing through the empty hallway as she was carried away to be reunited with her rightful parents. Andrew imagined the joy, the relief that they must have felt at that moment, their prayers answered, their nightmare finally over. And he knew, with a heavy heart, that he could never atone for the pain he had caused them. The house, once filled with the promise of a happy family, now felt empty and cold. Andrew wandered through the silent rooms, the weight of his shattered dreams pressing down on him. He had yearned for this moment, for the chance to be a father, but the reality of it had been twisted, corrupted by secrets and lies. In the aftermath of that day, Andrew found himself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt and anger warred within him. Guilt for his role in the deception, for not seeing the truth sooner. Anger at his wife and mother for their desperate actions, for the pain they had inflicted on another family. But amidst the turmoil, there was also a glimmer of understanding. He saw the depths of his wife's despair, her desperation to shield him from the pain of their loss. He saw his mother's fierce love, her willingness to do anything to protect her family, even if it meant crossing the line. The road ahead would be long and arduous. He knew that. But as he looked at the empty crib in the nursery, a single tear rolling down his cheek, Andrew vowed to honor the memory of the child he had briefly called his daughter by facing the future with honesty and courage. The truth had come at a steep price, but it had also set him free.